Hi, I'm Manuel Rode, one of four brothers running Rode. As a family company, we've been building kilns for over 40 years, focused on helping potters get the best results. That's why we're bringing Rode kilns to the US. Visit us at rodekilns.com or follow Rode USA on Instagram. Rode, enjoy your results. And now, enjoy the episode.
This episode is sponsored by Monkey Stuff. Monkey Stuff makes things for makers. We're inspired every day by the craft and creativity of makers and design and manufacture tools and accessories to try to make your making life a bit more delightful. Our products are designed in California, by makers and for makers, and manufactured in the USA. Check out our line of pottery accessories and tools at monkeystuff.com. Follow us on Instagram to see what we're up to in our studios, and keep on making great things.
Hey, this is Erin with Cornell Studio Supply, located in the gem city of Dayton, Ohio. As a proud sponsor of this episode, we are happy to celebrate 50 years of providing the best customer service and world-class workshops. Visit cornellstudiosupply.com for all your pottery and ceramic sculpture needs. At Cornell Studio Supply, we are owned and operated for potters, by potters.
Hello, my name is Kathy King, and welcome to the For Flux Sake podcast. I'm coming to you from the Harvard Ceramics program in our fair city, Allston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Rose and Matt Katz of the world-famous Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they are ready to answer your burning questions about clay and glaze. Well, hello, Matt and Rose.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
It has been forever since I've seen you. I'm so excited to see your tiny little rectangular faces.
Little faces.
Oh, wait, your face is in rectangle. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, my face is rectangular. All of a sudden, I've got the aspect ratio of a movie going on. I got hit by a truck.
You know, I just have to get more and more of you. So I got you on HD, as big
Okay,
as I
extreme
can set the
zoom.
zoom setting.
Full-
Yeah, whoa. Hold up there. Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, so much. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's been so long. Drama has emerged, and now we have news about drama disappearing.
Oh my goodness. I think for the first time ever, and producer Ben, get the car, get the van, the special school bus, because we're going to go to Materials Corner, but for a good reason. Yay!
Yay, non-depressing reason.
I can't believe it. We're all going to make it.
For now.
Come on now. Just let's stay in the moment. Let's stay in the
Come on,
moment.
stay
I got
positive.
Borders to the excitement. Well, we have to go all the way back because, you know, it's so funny. It has been a little while. We've been doing our workshops. You know, we go off and do workshops for a while, and we'll take a little gap from recording. And in the interim, some bad news had occurred that we hadn't really talked about. And that was that red art, which is pretty much the last highly functional red clay that we have here in North America.
So popular. It's in everything.
It's in everything. And I know there are others. I'm aware of you, Lizella. I know you're there, Newman. I know we've got the California reds, but red art is the one that's doing the heavy lifting in almost every clay body. And what had happened in the interim is that the company had needed to stop mining the seam that they were in. I still have not gotten the exact explanation as to what was going on, but that it was a technical issue. But in mines, they have what they call seams, which is like a ribbon of the good stuff. And they'll dig away at that seam, and that's where they'll get their good material from. Well, red art had been this one particular seam. And then for the not quite explained reasons, they had to change seams. That the good seam that they had been using was no longer viable, we'll say. And so they had moved to a different seam. Now it's the same mining deposit. It's the same general area, but it's, you know, mining over here versus mining over there. But materials change and chemistry changes and all of that. And the really bad news that had happened was that the new red art was not performing the same as the old red art. And this one didn't get the panic attack, I think, going through the community. I don't think people really knew about it, but like some bad things had happened. And Kathy, you saw some announcements of
Yeah, no, I saw a cool post from Kentucky Mudworks that had shown, and I think linked to Red Iron, about some different darker bodies that they had, and that they talked about changes, and they just showed the test tiles from the original to what the body looked like right now. And I thought that was great that they were putting that information forward to the consumer. So, yay them.
We have long advocated transparency from the clay companies, and that is a good step forward. Now, I saw the post. I think they could have disclosed some more data, but at least that they did put that forward. But it exposed the real problem, and down to we had seen some other clay companies that had basically said they're going to stop making certain bodies, because the thing that everybody needs to understand is that all dark bodies are dark because of red clays. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's manganese. It says that. No. Dark bodies are dark because of iron, and iron comes from red clays, what people traditionally call the terracottas. And then they might add in a colorant like manganese to change the tone or value, but you have to start with a baseline of a red clay. So all those dark bodies that everybody loves, that give me heart palpitations for reasons we can talk about later, but also all the terracottas, all the red clays, all the sculpture clays, the clays we've talked about before are like the real like movers and shakers in the clay industry, is really about selling terracotta. Those were all changing in ways that weren't good. I had talked to some of my people inside some other clay companies, and they basically could not get the bodies to fire the way they had before. And I'm not just talking about color. I'm talking about absorption rates and the general sort of durability conversations. And these were some smart people that I know that were doing it, and they were throwing everything that they could. And they're like, yeah, we got them like 95% of the way there, but they could not get them over the hump. I never got to see
always one. There's always one.
Always one. I didn't get to see the chemical analysis of the old red art, of the new red art. But what I was told from people who had seen it was that it actually had slightly more iron, which a lot of people go, yay, more iron, it's just going to be darker. But then the alumina and silica levels were also higher, and silica and alumina beat all. So like when you're talking about how well something fires and how refractory, which is how it affects temperature rise, that's the real killer, and that the silicon aluminum levels are higher, even if the iron levels are higher. And you just can't combat that, especially when you're talking about the low temperature bodies, especially when you're talking about like the cone 6 dark bodies, which you're really trying to get to vitrify, which they can. Cone 6 dark bodies can vitrify pretty easily, mostly from the iron. But it was a real struggle. And it sounds like some of the clay companies had sort of gone, this is the new reality. And some of them gone, we're not even going to deal with it. Like we can't even
there's so much R&D that would take to replace it.
Well, we had talked so much about red iron oxide and the clay bodies. Like, if things had continued going down that road, do you think that glazes that contain red iron oxide would have been, or red art, would have been greatly affected?
Yeah, the material sources are such a great conversation because of how we use materials in our different products, in clay bodies versus glazes. In clay bodies, of course, you want the red iron oxide in the clay bodies, the terracottas, because the iron is tied into the physical particle, and so you get really good distribution. So you don't get clumps of iron, which is why traditionally you don't really want to add red iron oxide, the glazed lab material, to your clay bodies, because it clumps and then you get bloating. And that's a huge problem with iron, because you'll get these little nodules, whereas the iron is really well distributed with the clay body. On the glazes, you tend to use red iron oxide because it's mixed with water and can distribute more homogeneously. But there are certainly glazes out there. The classic is celadons. Celadons are glazes that in reduction make a very light baby blue. And you have to control your amount of iron very precisely to get it right. And oftentimes red iron oxide doesn't work great. Actually, I have a test tile here. I could show Kathy and Rose. But y'all can't see
That's
it.
not
But
nice
it's
to
got
our
lots
listeners.
of spots on it. I know. I won't. It's got a bunch of spots on it because it didn't get mixed really well as a Celadon. So you've got like the nice baby blue, but then all these little iron spots. And so a lot of Celadons will use something like red art as their colorant because it's in the particulate form. It distributes much better. You get a nice, richer color. So there certainly are those possibilities. But all that said, it doesn't matter. Yay!
Wow, that never happens. This is
It's
great.
very rare that it does.
Let's just sit in this moment for a moment.
Thank you, Red Art. Thank you.
Yeah. So what we didn't actually say at the start is that they have been able to return to the original seam. And so I heard about this last week, and my people were telling me that they're pushing to get it into production as fast as possible because basically everybody's like, we can't do anything. Because again, going back to the terracottas, this is the real secret about American clay companies. American clay companies, they don't care about porcelain. They don't care about stoneware. They care about terracotta. That is where they make their money because it's what they're selling to public schools. Selling terracotta to elementary schools across America is a massive business. That is what the American clay business is. And so for all of a sudden, the terracottas to be failing are a big deal. Like in our community, when EPK went away, everybody freaked out because it's a big deal for us. The clay company's like, it's fine. We'll deal with it. Whatever. But terracotta, the basis for all terracotta goes away, and not having a substitute and not being able to do a swap is a huge, huge problem. And like we said, in clay bodies, it's different than in glazes. In glazes, a material goes away, you can kind of substitute anything for anything. And if you know your chemistry, it'll work. In a clay body, you don't just care about chemistry, you care about physical performance too, because it's all about particle packing and particle to particle interaction. And there is no such thing as a substitute in a clay body. There are clays that are kind of similar, but you're still going to have to tweak your recipe. But if you're in a situation where red art was, where the chemistry doesn't work and the particle packing may not work, you're really up the creek. And then on top of it, there aren't really substitutes for red clays in America. Like I said, the list is basically, there's one called Newman Red, there's one called Lizella, which are good for color, but don't work particularly well from an artist's perspective. And then there's some West Coast red clays, one called Gauge Red, which has also gone in and out of the market over the last couple of years and is back now and is a very good color, but doesn't have the workability and doesn't have the distribution and all that kind of stuff. So it was really ugly. I mean, for clay companies to just shut down bodies, or to even disclose what's going on, that's a big deal. People were really scared.
My goodness. Well, yay. So we should move on because we have so many fantastic questions to get to. And kind of linked to some of this, we're going to hear a question from Teresa from Georgia, who has a question that I ask myself every night before falling to sleep. What is vitrified enough?
Hi, Kathy, Rose, and Matt. My name is Teresa Pitts, and I'm from the middle of nothing and nowhere, Georgia, in the U.S. My setup is at my house, and I have my own electric kiln, so I can fire any way I want to. I am using a white commercial stoneware that is advertised to mature at cone 5 to 6. I have done multiple firings and 5-hour absorption tests and have found that it needs to be a cone 7 plus about a 5-minute top hold to pass a 0.5% absorption test. Now that I've found that, I am testing the commercial glazes that I am using to make sure they will perform the way I want them to. My question is, since I can achieve vitrification below cone 10, is there any good reason to push the clay and glazes to cone 10? If so, what would be the benefits? I love your show, but I'm sad to know that I'm almost caught up with all your episodes. Thank you.
No.
Wow. Is this a plant? Like, okay, let's ask Matt what the benefit of going to cone 10 versus 6 would be. I'm going to go do something over here while you guys answer this.
Well, it's your fault for letting me sort the questions this week.
I know, right? Got to get up earlier in the morning, apparently. Yep.
I know. The answer is no. There is no benefit, Teresa, to pushing it to cone 10. Cone 10, yes, I am a huge fan of cone 10, but it is about the vitrification. And the real thing about cone 10 is that it is the most straightforward way to get the best results for vitrification. Basically, you can, if you know your chemistry and the, if the clay companies are dialing everything in appropriately, you can pretty much get anything to vitrify at cone 10. It's also the temperature at which you can make the simplest glazes in clay body, meaning the fewest number of total ingredients, and still get it to vitrify. But there is not an absolute dictum that you must fire to cone 10 if you can hit that 0.5% absorption. Now, Teresa brings up a good point that the actual results she's seeing in the real world don't match what the clay company is saying. And that I am not shocked by. Talking about workshops, I just got done teaching a 2-week workshop just on clay bodies at Anderson Ranch. Shout out to the people at Anderson Ranch. It's amazing there. I love it. But we spent a lot of time looking at firing curves, which are one of my favorite things to do. And for y'all at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com, we have a huge collection of firing curves. We have over 60 bodies that we have profiled. We're about to publish another 60 coming here in the not too distant future.
Really?
Oh my gosh,
we're finished up with
such a slog.
So, I know it's so helpful though. I mean, I've used that many times.
Good.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is when you do look at these firing curves, what you see is that it's always a curve. And this is where I get my sort of like, what's really going on with what these firing temperatures are. And what Teresa's saying is exactly what you see. That what the clay companies are saying is vitrified, or what they're saying I shouldn't even say vitrified, because people often make the assumption that when a clay company lists their firing temperature, that they are saying that that's where it's vitrified. And there is no correlation between those things. The clay companies can say whatever they want, and that they can call it that. Now, people make a connection in their head. They're like, oh, well, it says cone 6 to 5. That means it's vitrified. No, they're just saying that that's the temperature they think you should fire to. They are not trying to meet any particular standard. And so the real question is where is its position, its firing curve? And the amazing thing you see when you look at these firing profiles that we've done is we fire a body at every single temperature, and we literally can watch it vitrify. And what I can say definitively is every single body will vitrify. Does it vitrify at the temperature it's being advertised at? That's a different conversation. And a lot of the times, my big problem with cone 6 or mid temperature is that the bodies are under their position, which means that they are on the curve up, but they have not hit the window where they are actually vitrified. And that's where I go, nope. That is where it's unacceptable, because they're basically telling you it's okay to under fire, and that you have to ask them why. And then you go, well, this is why they don't love to sponsor Matt on the podcast, because he gets a little too opinionated. But that's why we need your Patreon support. Everybody support us on Patreon so we can keep doing firing curves. And so, what you have found is that if it hits vitrification at cone 7 with your 5-minute hold, great. That's your firing temperature. That's perfectly fine. You don't need to change your clay body. You don't need to have to go to cone 10 if you hit your vitrification. And that's what we care about. The other thing I will say, because this had come up recently on social media where some people were tagging me with a conversation where people were talking about this concept of, porcelains have to be 0.5% absorption, but stonewares can be 2% absorption. No, that is completely and utter nonsense. There is no factual reality in that. That is people trying to justify poor behavior and get away with it. And that is, again, where I will come in here. There is only one standard, to be clear. Only one, and that is the 0.5% absorption. And I'm willing to go through, because every time I say this, the people come in and say, oh, that's just Matt's opinion. It's not my opinion. It's literally the FDA and the ASTM. There's real documentation to this, and anybody who wants to fight me, go ahead. The ASTM, find me the definition for semi-vitreous, and that is from 0.5% absorption to 10% absorption. Okay. And anyone who's worked with 10% absorption, that's like green clay is 10% absorption. Okay. That's craziness. So the reason why you will see some stoneworks with higher absorption rates is, I suspect, tied to clay bodies with a ton of grog. If you've got a ton of grog in your clay, that grog will have absorption and pick up water, and you'll often see the absorption rates bottom out at 1 or 2%. And that is what it is. But again, this is why firing curves matter, because you can see how it's maturing and has it hit full maturation. But yeah, it's not a variable in any way. But the short version is, for Teresa, you're fine. Go with the 7.5, and hopefully all the glazes are working for you. They should be okay at that extra 1 cone higher. But again, we're not firing to a temperature. We're firing to the completion of a chemical reaction. So it'll probably be okay.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online source for research and inspiration, featuring photos of thousands of objects made by over 800 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required. To find out more, visit www.rosenfieldcollection.com.
Opening the kiln shouldn't be a gamble. At CMW, we've spent years on glaze chemistry, and we built ware to put that science to work for you. Pick any color from your imagination, a photo, anything that inspires you, and we'll formulate a custom glaze for your clay, your cone, and your work. No glaze lab, no guesswork, no more post-firing heartbreak. Ware is available at wareglaze.com.
Well, while we're on the subject, our next question comes from Evan, who actually just reached out to me and is going to be in Boston and is coming by next Thursday to come see the studio. So we love to meet people who are listening. It's really fun. So anyway, Evan asked about making vitrified clays.
Hello, Kathy, Rose, Ben, Matthew. This is
Matthew.
Evan calling from Arvada, Colorado. I'm curious about the clay companies and the making clay bodies that have low absorption ratings. Matt is pretty frequently railing against the clay companies for making a clay body that just isn't meeting those standards. So I'm curious why. Is it hard to make a clay body that has a very low absorption rate? Are they concerned about the cost? At a home studio, if I was mixing my own clay body, could I target a really low absorption rate? And I guess there's another part of my question, which is what are the other ways to measure the quality of a clay body in terms of what you should expect from a clay manufacturer? That's it. Hope I didn't kick off another epic rant, but hey, you never know, and you only live once. Thanks.
I appreciate that, Evan. Thank you.
Hey, Matthew.
Sure.
Yes, Matthew.
Rose
Answer the
called me
question.
Matthew.
When you're in trouble.
Oh,
No, I
man.
call him
Well,
Matthew a lot.
She does. I would actually ask Rose, because back in your industrial days, you did have some standards that you had to watch out for. It's not just me talking like a crazy person, but yeah, I mean when you were doing.
You do talk like a crazy person sometimes, but that's okay. We forgive you. Yeah, so we did have standards. As a manufacturer, it was cost was a big one. We want to keep your costs down, keep your profit margins in check and your losses in check with your KPIs, your key performance indicators.
Ooh.
And so cost was a big one, and keeping it simple, really. To simplify your supply chain is always key, because if you have a complicated supply chain or a supply chain that's really hard to work with, it's going to make your production even worse. It's going to make scheduling worse. It's going to make scheduling production worse, scheduling, jobs that are finished and going out the door worse. So it's kind of like an avalanche. Like if you start complicated, you're just going to get more complicated down the hill. And then the last one was your performance. So cost, simplification, and your performance of your product. It had to meet certain performance standards. And sometimes those things get juggled around. Your performance becomes top because you're reformulating your body, and then cost comes second, and simplification comes third. So it's kind of a juggling act with all these key elements in producing your body. So it really depends on what is important for your process, especially in industry.
Well, and can you talk a little bit about your second tile company that you guys were making a highly functional unglazed tile that was meant for, I mean, the big one that got me was pools. Like, start to think about like every pool you went to and the fact that they are tiled, and that those pool tiles had to hit very specific performance standards for literally just the safety of that tile soaking in water or being splashed with water and all that kind of thing.
Splashed with treated water too. It's not just, rainwater or water coming out of your faucet. It's chlorinated water, which is can be even more corrosive. And so it was an unglazed product. Yes. So we had to meet very rigorous standards for decoff, which is dynamic coefficient of friction. That was the big one. But also the shape of the tile also played into that too, because the more grout lines you have, the higher decoff, which is nice. But for the surface itself on the tile had to be flaw free, and so there were lots of standards within that performance standard. With the decoff was always the biggest one because that's your slip resistance in a wet area, and then corrosion was a big one. Absorption, well, that was really key. If we were out of spec for absorption, that tile got thrown away. There's no way we could sell that if it was out of spec for absorption. And so there was lots of different factors inside those standards.
Well, let me ask you the question though. So you did you have to be vitrified for your tile?
Oh yes, we had to be under 0.5% absorption. Yep. No matter what.
And this is the thing. So the pool thing, this is why I love the pool thing, because these are tiles that are soaking in water all the time. And that can have then all sorts of cascading downfalls from it. One, just soaking in water is corrosive, as you say. Like, is it going to leach into the pool? Is the surface going to degrade? That was a big one. Is the grout going to degrade because of that corrosiveness? That affects. So if your surface of your tile degrades, then your decoff will degrade, and that goes higher. So it's not a good thing that it's degrading. Yeah, absolutely. So if it's vitrified, it is glass, and mullite is the other thing you grow, and that is basically impervious if done properly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you throw in all the different colors and the additives that they would put in there, and yeah, that changes. Every color had a different absorption rate, and you had to fire it a certain way. It was a lot.
Well, but it is so important because, when we think about a pool, well, don't think about a pool. We have children. Believe me, I think about pools all the time. But the sanitation is a huge deal. That is a giant vat of water with everybody's body microbes.
Oh no, I don't want to
soaking in
it.
Oh, you do. Happy summer, everyone.
Happy summer. Let's think about producer Ben's microbes and how we're all sharing them.
It brings up memories of my lifeguard days.
You were saving their lives, but the bacteria was fighting you. That was your number one enemy. It's a lifeguard. But this is really serious because it gets exhausting, whenever we talk about this thing and people are like, oh, you don't need vitrification for sanitation. Like, Yeah, you do. You really do, people. And the one that gets me crazy is, you'll get some people that'll say, oh, but what about all of the cultures that have under vitrified work? That they're not all dying. And I will often say, I guarantee that there have been millions of people that have died throughout history because of exposure to unsanitary forms of clay, whether that is getting it in their food or drinking water or what they're soaking in, because everybody thinks about the young, healthy people. But what the last thing I remember my grandfather doing was swimming. That was like his last exercise as an elderly person. And he had a compromised immune system, and he is exposed to that. And sanitation is a huge deal. And the best way to be sanitary is to be impervious. Okay, that is the full thing. You need to have that level of resistance. And that's what vitrification gives us. This is why it's not a variable. It's not a maybe. There is a reason why we use ceramics for our cleaning surfaces, for our bathrooms, for our sinks, for our floors. Okay.
Or after dinnerware.
Well, that's the other one, right? There is a reason why we use vitrified clay for the surfaces before things go into our body, right? The protective layer for our food and for the things that exit our body, because we want to keep that path sanitary too. This is the thing that really drives me crazy when people are doing this. And I don't know why they are. This is something that drives me crazy. The only reason I can think about it is that it's just people that have the sunk cost fallacy. They've gotten in bed with under vitrified clays, as we were just talking about with Teresa, and that they're just sort of just trying to defend their choices. But other than that, you're carrying water for clay companies that are selling an under vitrified product. And this is why I get grumpy about it. And this is why the clay companies get grumpy at us for saying these things, because honestly, y'all are being irresponsible, because it needs to be vitrified. It's not a maybe. It is the way it is. Now, again, if you're making sculpture, fine, I don't care. But for all the people who are like, oh, but what about all these cultures of under vitrified ware? There's a reason why we have modern standards and why things grow through time, and we figure out that vitrification is the standard. Sure, people did it in the past, but it doesn't mean that it didn't affect people in the past. It doesn't mean that it's the right way to do it. It just means that, yeah, people did a thing, they figured out that it wasn't the best way to do a thing, and now we do a better thing. And that is progress, right? For all the arguments about politics out there about what progressive means, progressive just means we are moving forward, people. We are taking things that didn't work and we are moving forward and making them better. That's what being a progressive is really about. And I'm a ceramics progressive, y'all. We need to,
Okay. Well, so anybody who sees any elderly people in a pool this summer, make sure to take a moment and tell them about what you've learned here on this episode. Make their day. Make their day. Thank you. Thank you for Flux Sake podcast. Okay, Matt, I'm gonna bring your mood up with our final question, because it's going to go back to your beloved cone temperature.
Yeah.
And this person would like to remain anonymous, but the listener says that they've moved into a new studio with a brand new cone 10 gas kiln, but they're struggling with the dated look of cone 10 reduction and wondering what makes it exciting. And then it added whether hotter firing will really make porcelain more translucent. So they're not digging. Well, you can't make spodumene anyway. So that got rid of, you can't afford it anyway. That got rid of one traditional old school cone 10 glaze.
It is true, that a lot of cone 10 reduction firing can look a little, I just gave my compliments to Anderson.
When we were in school, it was always cone 10 stoneware. There wasn't a whole lot of people using porcelain.
And stonewares can be kind of blah.
Yeah.
Meh. And a lot of the studio glazes out there. I just singing the praise of Anderson Ranch. I love you, Anderson Ranch. You're my favorite place to be there. I can't wait to come back and teach again, which we're already cooking to do. But we were hanging out and looking at their glaze wall, and it's 15 glazes and 5 of them were Chinos.
Your favorite.
It is challenging to get color infused, in the palette. We've been working with that at the studio. And so our glaze team just kind of revamped our rebase, so it's like kind of a brighter kind of teal, and people get really excited about it because it's not brown,
It's not brown or red or blue. Yeah. I mean, there's, not many colorants that react in reduction that so dramatically like copper does. Or
well, that's the funny thing, is that the materials that really do react good in reduction actually make fun colors, like celadons and copper reds, if you've got a good one. I think that actually, Kathy, you really called out the real shortcoming, is that I just think it's a what's out in the world problem. That there has been a style in ceramics for cone 10 reduction that honestly came out of the 70s and sort of the 50s through the 70s in the American craft movement. And that a lot of potters back then, they were making pots that were of a style and an aesthetic style that was more earthy and more natural and more brown and green. And I think it's led to a lot of glaze palettes that are just those colors. And that's what people sort of really feel like they're tied to.
Well, I mean, ceramics makes a lot of brown and a lot of green.
But I want to interject that those same glazes from the 70s, they didn't think them up. You go to a museum and go look at Temaku and Shino. I mean, all those glazes were historically inspired. They were just the ones to get it into the modern studio setting, I think.
But I would actually argue some of that, because something like a Shino, this is a great example. The original Japanese Shino is a white glaze. Like it is white. The brown Shinos and the flashing, those are American Shinos. Those are things that were developed here in the States to really push the brown tones. That is not what a Japanese Shino is. And in fact, there's some argument that the word for Shino comes from a version of the Japanese word for snow, because it's supposed to be white, like pure white. And that I think that 70s movement, like anyone, like, I mean, I was only born in the 70s, but also the 80s, like all the young people think the 80s was all neon colors. Like, no, everybody, the 80s was brown. Like the 80s, especially the first half of the 80s was seriously brown. But you look at the pots and the people that were making them, and I think that there's also a time correlation, because the 70s is also when cone 6 really started becoming a thing. I believe it's correlated to the rise of the energy and energy problems of the 70s. And suddenly people started wanting to save energy. So that's where sort of cone 6 became a thing. And I think to a certain degree that may have locked in a lot of cone 10 palettes to sort of stop being developed and refined in that same time period. Because, like, let's be clear, I love Val Cushing. Val Cushing was a mentor to me and a hero of mine. And his book, I've got 3 copies of it on the shelf behind me. But Val was making pots from the 50s to the early 2000s, really hitting his stride in the 70s. And when you look at his palette, they're all dolomite glazes with brown colors. And it wasn't dynamic. And I think that led to a limitation, combined with things like, with cone 6, there's the classic thing of people like, I like to work at cone 6 because the colors are brighter. When you tell me that, I also know that you're working with stains. Because stains have a temperature problem, because stains will decompose over cone 8. And so, yes, the colors don't get as intense. So if you're working with underglazes, there is a good chance they're going to change their color spectrum at cone 10. And I think that gives people a negative impression of, like, all of these coming combined. There are amazing glazes at cone 10 that can do amazing things. Like, look at what like Kurt Hammerly does. Look at what Florian Gadsby is doing. Of like, even Florian is earthy, but he's using that celadon language to really push different levels of color and tradition and all of that. And I think it's just that I think it's a bunch of old palettes that need to be updated, because there are exciting, good colors at cone 10. It's just that I just don't think that they're as well known or as well explored. But that's just me.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, where would you say look for inspiration? I mean, I think of glazy.org as a place to go shopping. There are a number of different books.
Well, gotta say, we have got our test book, which is 7,500 glaze tests, and 55% of them are cone 10. And every single test we made is fired in reduction at cone 6 and at cone 10. And there's a ton of colors in there, massive amounts of color.
Lots of different colors.
Yeah, I think actually, I love glazy, but the problem with glazy is I think a lot of people just sort of see a recipe and they're like, that's the recipe, go for the recipe. And our real position, as Rose has always said, is you've got to explore. Going just for a recipe is where you get stuck with all the just a rehash of something boring that came before.
And their luggage.
And their luggage. All the luggage. Oh my goodness. All right, y'all. We have run out of time, but great job. Everybody, way to go, team.
We have 3 questions. Yes.
I know, right?
Yes.
So until I see you again, farewell.
Hi, Kathy.
Later, y'all.
Well, folks, that's it for this week's episode of For Flux Sake. I'd like to thank the listeners who submitted questions this week. And if you want your question answered on the show, shoot us an email at forfluxsakepodcast@gmail.com. So join us next time. And when in your studio, remember what Rose always says.
Always remember to test, test, test. This is a test of the emergency glaze system.
Beep. Hi, everyone. If you've been leaning into our glaze deep dives to troubleshoot your studio struggles or just geek out over oxide ratios, we'd love to invite you to join us over on our Patreon.
Think of it as the flux that helps our creative process flow a little more smoothly.
Producing for Flux Sake takes a lot of behind-the-scenes chemistry, from research time to tech costs. By becoming a Patreon member, you're directly helping us keep the show independent and technical.
By supporting us at the $5 a month tier, you get access to our Patreon Flux U bonus episodes, archived for Flux Sake Season 1 and Season 2. And you get priority submission for your questions from the team to answer in future episodes. Oh, and along with exclusive for Flux Sake merch.
We know how quickly the cost of cobalt adds up, so we've kept our tiers accessible. Every bit of support means we can spend more time answering your questions and less time worrying about the business side of things.
So check out our link on our show notes or visit patreon.com and keep the conversation and the kilns firing.